Bahamas Air, you know what their slogan is? If you have time to spare, take Bahamas Air. They don't even care about being an hour late. It's not even Spirit Airlines where you have the aggravated people up there at the desk frantically going around changing the time. They don't even give a shit, right? The plane's not even there yet. And it's 4:30. We're supposed to take off at 4, and they still have big letters on time because they're on island time.
You're already late.
They have to put in parentheses island on island time. They don't give a flying one. I mean, there's no regard for time, whatsoever with Bahamas Air.
They still have on time. You're 45 minutes late.
There's no plane in the hangar. Nothing at the gate. And then it does arrive. Sometimes airlines they hustle, they turn the thing around pretty quickly, and you're amazed, going, "Wow, that's a pretty good job there. Did you make sure you have enough gas to get to Cleveland?"
Yeah, exactly.
They pull in they're already an hour late. We'll take another hour. Why don't you guys go to the bar and have a Bahama Mama? A couple of maraschino cherries thrown in there right on the top there with some foam and some whipped cream. They don't care. If you have time to spare, fly Bahamas Air. I believe that is their marketing slogan.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very pleasant good morning during our winter of discontent here on the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest and one Mike Lubitz. Very happy to entertain you today, and glad you guys tuned in for the show here on South Florida Live. Be with you till 9 o'clock in the a.m., and we'll talk to Chris Perkins later on as everybody is screaming and fetching and all loaded with anxiety about what's going to happen with your Miami Dolphins. Even Dolphin Denny, I felt a little eruption coming from the graveyard where he's buried. He was rolling over in his grave. You can't believe that they might close the season losing 6 in a row. Was certainly in a little bit of a jackpot this week with Teddy Bridgewater likely to start against the New England Patriots on the road, with the Patriots still somewhat incentivized, I think, by narrow and faint playoff hopes. The Dolphins, I believe, only have to really win one of their last 2, and if they beat the Jets, they're in the playoffs, even if they lose this game. So in a very, very fortunate position, considering the fact that they've lost 4 in a row since rattling off 4 straight wins and moving to 8-3. And we all got excited. We thought we were cashing our tickets. Being online to cash your tickets on the over on 9 with the Miami Dolphins right now at a race book or a sports book, rather, is probably tantamount to waiting for your Southwest Airlines flight to finally be cleared for takeoff. Have you ever suffered the indignity of sleeping in an airport? I always feel for these people. Now, you look and you see somebody, and this is my favorite one, and I've never actually done this or been subjected to this level of absolute wasted anxiety on trying to get out of an airport. But you find out that your flight's canceled. Okay, whatever, going to be delayed hours, maybe not going to show up at all. Have you ever been sleeping on a row of chairs where you were underneath the armrests?
Yes.
So you have? Yeah. You've slept in an airport? I've never slept in an airport.
I've never stayed there, slept overnight, but we've had a flight that kept getting pushed back 2 to 3 hours that we passed. It was late night.
And you were laying under the armrest so you could stretch out across 4 chairs?
Yes. I remember Shirley sitting on the floor like this, and I was on the armrest on the thing.
I at one time had the skill, and I thought it was very important if you were working in this business, especially if you were doing a lot of traveling. It was vitally important to be able to fall asleep anywhere, anytime, including during the broadcast. And I was an expert, maybe aided slightly by the occasional drop of a Xanax tab, but I was an expert at falling asleep on airplanes. I could nod out the minute before they even took off. I mean, the plane hadn't even reached, the level where it was in the air at all, and I was already out cold, and I would sleep right to the destination. Didn't matter where it was.
See, that's funny. That's the one ability I don't have. Shirley can sleep anywhere, anytime. We take these long flights, and I can sleep for 45 minutes an hour. I can't knock out for 5 hours. I just can't. That I can't do.
That always sucks. It was kind of like when I was, and I've talked about this, when I was in Mr. Tideman's social study class. And it was the ultimate example of clock torture. In fact, in terms of clock management, it ranks up there with Nathaniel Hackett when he was the coach of the Denver Broncos. And you're thinking, what on earth is this guy thinking, man? 4th and 1, you have to go for this. You can't punt with 1:30 to go when you're down.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate to say this. 2 possessions, Lubie, 2 scores.
There you go.
It's a 2-possession game. That's right. But yeah, I mean, it's wacky. Yeah, the clock management thing in the NFL is atrocious by most coaches. But clock management for me when I was in school was trying to not look at the clock while it was ticking away, because certain classes were just outright torture for me, including Mr. Tideman, who was the assistant basketball coach. His social studies class was so boring, Lubie. And I'm a guy, obviously, I like talking about political things and history and things like that. I get into all of that stuff, but I don't know that anybody in the history of education ever made a subject more boring than Mr. Tideman did. An interesting subject, right? I mean, he could have been teaching like a boxing and horse racing class, and I would have fallen asleep during this thing. So I would compel myself, and tell myself over and over again, do not look at the clock. Do not look at the clock. Now, in this business, you're constantly looking at a clock, and I am largely driven. It's odd and guided by time. In fact, it's so in my head that I try to detach myself from it when we're not doing shows, and it's hard to do because you're thinking, okay, it's 11:30. I can crash for an hour, then go to my appointment, and if I wake up at 12:26, I'll have plenty of time to get ready and get out the door there. Are you guided by time? Or are you bound by time? I don't know why. I mean, because the time is running out for me. I mean, the sands are going through the hourglass. I just saw some other sports guy checked out at 89, guy I wasn't that familiar with, who was a fabled New York sportscaster many years ago. And I'm thinking, that's not that far away, Lubie. We're talking about, like 17 and a hook in terms of years.
I know. It goes by fast, but...
Goes by fast.
Shatner's 91, and he's still doing commercials and lives a full life. I saw a lady that
and he's horrendously overweight. I mean, the man has been obese for a long time.
Exactly. So there you go. Use that as your example. Don't worry about those that...
Certain people have the kind of body chemistry, though, where, you always, see the example of the person, he smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And it's like they're honoring the person on the news because they reached 105. And they're still running marathons, and alcohol is really the key.
Yeah, eats a steak a day.
Keith Richards, man. I mean, come on.
Well, that's an anomaly.
Had an oil change.
Exactly.
He's still around. He's still banging like 17-year-old chicks. Unbelievable. What were the Rolling Stones? They must have been doing some good drugs, man. Mick's still going strong. I mean, they've had their casualties, but Brian Jones, right? But that was an overdose many, many years ago. Remember the blonde-haired bass player that they had? But wow, I mean, to still be touring. I mean, they were touring as recently as last year, were they not? Mick's hopping around on the stage. Like, he just stepped into the ring for his first pro fight as Sugar Ray Leonard. I mean, okay, I got everything going. I got the energy here. I'm going to knock this clown out. But anyway, Southwest Airlines, what a nightmare. And if you're talking about 6-7 days of delays, I mean, that's what do you do for an option, right? It's snowing all over the country. You can't rent a car and drive anywhere. It's going to take you 17 hours to accomplish what you could have done otherwise in 2 or 3 hours by taking the flight. And they just keep telling people, we might have something in January for you. Now, that's still a few days away, even if you're looking at it like as the joke, like, hey, I'll see you next year. But it's going to be like next Wednesday. I mean, you're still talking about another 4 days of being stuck in a town when you factor in hotels and all of that stuff. I mean, it gets exorbitant, does it not? What a crisis that is. You're seeing lines in the airports all over the place. And this was because you figured it was a good idea to book a flight for $9.
Yeah.
Southwest Airlines. You get what you pay for.
The reason is, it's not the weather this entire time. No. Other planes are flying.
Their computer system crashed or something.
It takes days?
It's taken weeks, apparently, to fix that up. But that's an atrocity that's going on around the country. And how fortunate do you feel if you're not one of those people? I mean, imagine you're so happy that you're flying Spirit.
Yeah, they said that the first time they made Spirit looks good.
They look good, yeah.
We're fine.
Spirit looks like Delta, man, compared to these guys. I always liked Southwest Airlines. They had a cool attitude, right? Like it would be Easter, and the flight attendants would all be wearing rabbit ears, and little hats, and they always got people going. They would have little gambling games, right, where you put money in the bag there, and somebody won it. But right now, I mean, definitely not a favorable thing. All right, the big news yesterday out of the NBA, and this is kind of interesting from a lot of different standpoints. was Luka Doncic and his triple-double, his monumental triple-double, 60, 20, and 10.
Yeah.
60 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and that was in an overtime dramatic victory over the New York Knicks, who led by 9 points with 33 seconds to go. You do all of the mathematical permutations, it's almost impossible. Holy Reggie Miller. Impossible to lose in that circumstance, is it not?
Only 2 times, I think, are Reggie Miller, where he scored 8 in, like, what was it, 9 seconds or something?
Yeah.
And the Tracy McGrady a few years ago when he was with the Rockets, where he scored like 12 in like 30 seconds or something.
I'm not sure that Doncic accounted for all of those points, but he did account for the game tying bucket. Yeah. And a play that never works, right? Worked. Where you deliberately missed a free throw, but somehow you get the rebound and you actually put yourself in a position to tie the game. Whereas if you had made the free throw, you would have certainly lost the ball game. But with a couple of seconds to go or something around that neighborhood, I'm not sure if Doncic was on the line, but a deliberately missed free throw ended up in Doncic's hands, and he cans the bucket. I think he might have made a three out of the corner, which leads me to believe that somebody else got the rebound. But I don't know if they even had enough time to pass the ball. He ended up tying the ball game. It goes to overtime, and 60, 20, and 10, I believe, has never been done before. I think that's a first on a triple-double with 60 points, 20 rebounds, and 10 assists. Even the great Wilt Chamberlain with all of his 50-plus rebound game. I mean, he would get like 55 and 25 rebounds, but didn't have that many assists. 60, 20, and 10 for Luka Doncic. Now, if you look at it, we were talking about the worst trades in history. And I'm not sure because the other guy is actually a very good player and he's been a catalyst for some successful things, but I think wildly inconsistent by comparison to Doncic. But you'll remember the draft day trade, correct? Because Doncic was originally drafted in the number 3 spot, and they must have had a prearranged agreement that the Atlanta Hawks were going to take Doncic number 3 overall in the year that he came out. I want to say, what was that? Was that 2018 or something? Maybe. All right, so he was traded immediately on draft day for Trae Young, and the Atlanta Hawks also got a first-round pick from the Dallas Mavericks for going ahead and choosing with the 3rd pick. Now, I suppose they could have just traded the pick, and Dallas would have drafted Luka Doncic, but somehow, you know how those NBA deals go, where the guy walks over after being drafted to Susie Colbert. He's got a Pistons hat on. Susie almost weeping. I think they took her off this draft coverage. I don't think she's involved in this anymore. But, it got really, really soapy when Susie Colbert would ask every person that came off the stage. Now, some of these guys, were freshmen in college and they didn't really have a whole lot to say. They were happy to be drafted. They accomplished their NBA dream. I understand all of that. But when you hit a 19-year-old kid with, how would you describe this journey to where you are today? Guy's got to be looking at you and saying, what is this? Are you auditioning to host The Bachelorette? The fuck is this journey? I played high school ball. I went to college for 1 year. Calipari told me one and done, and I'm gone.
Exactly.
And I'm happy to be drafted in the lottery. And then the guy would walk off the stage, and 2 seconds later, the Pistons hat would go in the garbage, and he'd been traded to the Sacramento Kings. Which, by the way, when was the last time you checked the standings, Lubie?
Right now, that was the first time I've done it in a while. Why?
Sacramento has a winning record. What the hell is that?
Really?
Yeah, Sacramento's like 17-15. The Sacramento Kings. You almost never see that, right? I mean, you automatically assume if you were going to try and figure out where the Kings are standing in the NBA rankings, you would look immediately to the bottom, would you not? And scroll your way back up.
Well, they'd be in the playoff. They'd be in
17 and 15. That's a mystery, and it's one of the mysteries of the Philadelphia 76ers are actually good. They had an 8-game winning streak snap last night. Joel Embiid is playing MVP basketball. James Harden now says he wants to return to the Rockets. How welcome will he be in Houston?
I'm sure they're about running.
I mean, he won it out of there badly when he actually still had ability. And, not nearly the same player, but, you would think that's a weird thing. I don't know how that speculation got started. I mean, do you think Harden was holding a press conference? He said, you know what? I'd really like to return to the Rockets. In the middle of a season where the Philadelphia 76ers have a chance to win a championship, this asshole wants to tell you that he wants to go back to the shittiest team in the league? Are you kidding me? What is wrong with these people?
He's fun.
Too much money, huh? Too much money.
Time, James Harden. James Harden's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Really.
So, what do you think? I mean, what do you think about that trade now? Luka Doncic for Trae Young and a first-round pick.
It's so funny because this whole time it's lean Doncic. He's been MVP candidate. Trae Young hasn't been to those levels, but the Hawks have made a conference finals. They did push the eventual champion Bucks to 6 games.
Yeah.
And they've been relevant and they've been fun. And the Mavs did get to a conference finals last year, but they always feel like they're going to come up short. But it's pretty clear like who won that.
I mean, you can't put Trae Young in superstar status, can you? I mean, he's obviously a big name. He's an attraction. He's somebody that, it's kind of troubling for me, having grown up on solid, fundamental New York City basketball, a la Jim Larinaga, where you just have a guy that shamelessly, I mean, I know Steph Curry does this to great success, and he takes like a 40-footer, and you're thinking, come on, Steph, do something else. But Trae Young, I will just inadvertently chuck a ball from any distance, and lots of times it's a line drive brick. And you're asking yourself, I mean, can it be a lot of fun to run around? I mean, you're running around like a maniac trying to shake your man. Yep. You're running a guy through backdoor picks on the baseline, coming up on the other side. You come out to the top of the key. You're giving the guy this, here. Trae Young just looks at you, and then after 23 and a half seconds evaporate off the shot clock, launches a line drive brick from straight away 37 feet. And you're asking yourself, who drew this play up? Mike D'Antoni? No, D'Antoni would have had him shooting the ball in the first 5 seconds of the shot clock. But it would be very frustrating. Although Trae Young does, generate a lot of assists, he nonetheless, I mean, when he just settles for that line drive brick from 35, I really question it. Now Luka will chuck it up from anywhere, also, but he does. Well, Young goes to the basket and gets a lot of those little floaters in the lane and probably gets more mileage out of himself than a lot of people would consider. I mean, but if you had a chance to get a 6'7", 225, 230-pound guy that has the kind of skills that Luka Doncic does, or a 5'10", skinny, balding point guard who likes to chuck the ball from the Coke machine.
Balding, why does that just...
I don't know, guys going bald at 19. Come on, Lubie. You still have hair.
Jordan did the bald thing young. You think it's out of choice at first?
No, I mean, look, I don't have anything.
I love that you throw in the balding.
Thank God we don't have, a back of the head camera here.
Exactly.
Because you'd be seeing a giant red yarmulke, which has been emerging for years. It keeps getting bigger, but just enough hair in the front to kind of sustain a level. Looking like I have hair. All right, who do you think was drafted ahead of Luka Doncic when he was taken third?
I used to know that draft. I don't know.
All right. Number 1 pick, Phoenix Suns, DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton.
Solid. Been solid.
Okay, you can't really knock the pick, but it's not like taking Olajuwon ahead of Michael Jordan, is it?
No, like it's not justified. Luka has been clearly better. 100%.
Way better than DeAndre Ayton.
Like Jordan was better, but Olajuwon's going to go down as a top 10 player.
Olajuwon was not a bad pick.
Top 3 center by most accounts. So you did fine. And they won 2 titles. Okay. Ayton has been...
Sam Bowie, unfortunately, was a relatively negative pick there by the Portland Trailblazers and probably tarnished the image of the great Stu Inman, who was known as a extremely wise and efficient talent observer and evaluator. Was with the Heat, I guess, for a while, but I couldn't help myself. Every time I saw Stu Inman, I would think, hey, Stu, still like Sam Bowie over Michael? Inman used to justify that, and a lot of people did, because then they had, who? Did they have? Clyde Drexler, yeah.
God forbid 2 talented players play together, which is literally what the Bulls did and what the Heat did.
Why would you want to pair up 2 guys like Drexler and Jordan?
They would have been unstoppable. Like, what do you
imagine? They could have just lobbed the ball inside all day long. They could have had any stiff. They could have had Billy Pauls at center, and they would have scored 40 a game. Unbelievable. All right, so DeAndre Ayton was a number 1 pick. Who do you think was the number 2 pick? Number 2 pick in that draft between DeAndre Ayton and Luka Doncic.
2 was the bogus one, and I can't remember. I'd have to look.
All right. Not really. I mean, I think this guy is now distinguishing himself a little bit. Marvin Bagley, the second or the third. Yeah.
Bagley's been... I liked Bagley coming out of Duke, but wasn't he a king? Now he's on the Pistons. He's playing better.
He was a Sacramento King, yeah, and he was awful with
you
the
can't
Kings.
blame him, I guess.
Unbelievable.
Kings of
Now the
Republic.
Mavs in that same draft. Listen to me with my NBA draft history
Now,
today. I
listen,
sound like
you're
Scoop
throwing me
Skolnick
for a
here on
loop
the show.
here.
You like the fact I'm doing a little more research here.
You're throwing me all over the place. Sarni will be happy.
Sarni likes detail. He really does. He doesn't like when we just blindly pontificate about nothing and assume that the facts will fall into place somewhere thereafter, like this Santos guy.
Oh,
By the
good.
way, how is it that every Republican, what a disgrace. I mean, I'm going to make a political statement. What a disgrace these people are in the Republican Party that they have nothing to say about this. Not a single Republican is on board saying, you know what, this really is a very poor reflection on people representing our party. The fact that this guy is just a straight up lying bastard and somehow got himself elected because he was getting a lot of sympathy from different directions for the fact that, he may be empathetic to causes of the Jews and, of people of a certain type of thinking because supposedly he has all of these qualifications. And it turns out
All lies.
all lies. Every
Oh.
single thing that he said was just total
I don't think
bullshit.
he has any degree of higher education. I think he claimed 2 or 3 different colleges.
Yeah.
He said he was Jewish.
He went to like Baruch University or something, one of these
That's one
big
of the
time
best business
schools in New
schools in
York.
the country.
Yeah.
My buddy actually has a master's in there. He didn't ever attend. He worked at like 2 of the higher firms, Goldman Sachs, and I'm trying to think of the other
And
one.
it turned out he was like a delivery guy for Amazon.
Never.
And not even a particularly good one, right? He was
Most people
often written up for being late.
like, dude, it's like me saying from being a producer, I'm a office manager. Yeah, I could probably extract what I did. Like, you're just flat out, that's lying. Like that's just,
there are times in your life, though, that you absolutely have to embellish your resume. I understand that. Yeah.
Embellish is one thing.
But in this case, when you're running for a public office where it's likely that most of this stuff is going to be exposed, and especially now with Google, where I have a friend that tries to maintain that he played for the New York Jets. Okay? And that's something, unfortunately, I hate to tell this guy, that you can easily look up, right?
Yes.
Claim that he founded many companies and all of this other stuff. And we looked at the guy, it's like, you're talking to us, right? The biggest bullshitters in the world. You think we're buying that for 1 second? You got to be kidding me. But not one Republican has come out that's currently in the House of Representatives or the Senate and said we cannot allow this guy. I mean, we have to take any means necessary to see if we can stop this guy from being sworn in.
No, they don't want that.
Nothing.
They don't want. They have the numbers. Not
what a disgrace.
But they have better numbers right now. They don't want to lose a person.
So what do you got there?
I don't know. A liar. He's not
a lying scumbag who can't be trusted. As far as you could throw a spitball. I mean, unbelievable.
It's a joke. It's so funny.
That's great. Yeah. No, I love the way this country is rolling right now. It's absolutely fantastic. So the Mavs get Jalen Brunson in the second round of that draft. So they picked up Doncic and Brunson. Now Brunson leaves for the Knicks and has been a huge factor for the Knicks after coming over as a free agent. The Knicks also recently got hit with a little fine for tampering in the Brunson deal, but that was tantamount to a joke as well because the ultimate tampering was nobody even bothered to consider that they hired his father as a coach out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
To be an assistant coach on the Knicks bench. I'm assuming that Brunson's father had some qualifications for this job.
Yeah, I think Rick Brunson's been a coach for a long time.
But how odd? I mean, is that just pure coincidence?
No, it's pretty.
It's kind of like Jerry Faust getting the Notre Dame job after sending several All-American 300-pound linemen straight out of high school at Cincinnati Moeller to Notre Dame, and eventually the chancellor looks and says, "You know what? We owe old Fausty a favor." That guy Hartman's transferring to Notre Dame. How about that? Right out of Wake Forest. And he was such a good story with Wake Forest, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And I thought he's been there for 14 years.
He has. He was injured. He had all kinds of stuff.
I didn't realize I know that COVID thing allowed some guys to have 6 or 7 years, but I didn't realize he got another, he's been there a long time. It's a little weird.
John Blutarski wasn't in school this long. It's true. The longest I've ever seen was Stevie Frazier prior to, I think you have guys now going 7 years, but Steve Frazier was an outstanding high school basketball player out of New York, recruited by Leonard Hamilton and supposed to immediately orchestrate a huge ascent of the University of Miami basketball program. And tragically, he shattered his knee when Leonard decided he was going to go with the Midnight Madness concept that he had, adopted from his ties to the University of Kentucky. So he thought, little did Leonard know, there was no way to spark up a basketball crowd for college basketball in this town, which is interesting because you would think with the Heat, as popular as they are, there might be some spillover effect to what has been, for the most part, fairly exciting University of Miami basketball program. Up against it in the ACC, going against these powers. Jim Laranaga's been there now, it seems like a dozen years. Is that right?
Yeah.
How long has Jim Laranaga been the head coach at UM? It's been a long, long time. Yeah, more than that, probably. I want to say maybe even 14 years, something like that. Because I do remember, and I will never forget this, certain people, and it turned out in this case, whatever happened to Armando Salguero? Is he writing football somewhere?
For Outkick, the place that Jason Cole.
Oh, the right wing thing that Jason Cole's part of?
He just fits, whereas Jason Cole does not fit politically, but
Armando is a right wing political guy?
Armando leans that way and is very happy to be with Outkick covering the NFL at large.
I always had respect for what the guy did because he wasn't afraid to challenge the authorities there with the Miami Dolphins, including Don Shula. And, he wasn't particularly a favorite son because teams don't like writers that are critical of what they do and consistently trying to, go ahead and dig up the truth, which I don't know that he always did. But I do remember because I was working a radio show and I left that station and the station replaced me on that morning show with Armando Salguero. And I think he was working with somebody else. And I tuned in one day, and this was after Laranaga was named the head coach. And Salguero was screaming on the air, "He's 61 years old. That's not what we need." Who did he replace? Frank Haith, who left in semi-disgrace?
He's been there since 2011, and I think it was Haith who went either in disgrace or went to Missouri.
Okay, because and I remember thinking, well, what difference does it make that the guy's 61 years old if he can, put a program together? And the interesting thing is, now at like 72 years old, not only has Laranaga sustained a high level of excellence, let's not forget, this seems like centuries ago, and you almost don't realize it, but they were in the grade 8 last year.
Yes.
University of Miami. And they come back after losing some talent and go right through the transfer portal to be sitting there at 12-1. They had their game canceled last night. It's tonight, I guess. It was supposed to be the game against Vermont. It was either last night or tonight. And the game was canceled. And this doesn't bode well for our dear friend, Tony Segreto, who is trying to fly out of Vermont today. But the team itself was unable to make travel arrangements. Now, you would imagine, I don't know, college basketball teams don't always fly on charter flights. I'm not sure that UM even does, because when I was traveling with the UM basketball team for a few years, we were always on commercial flights, which was interesting because everybody stared at Constantine Popa when he came on the plane. There was, how there's always one person that goes down the aisle and everybody and nobody could believe Popa, who had to, almost double over so that he could get down the aisle there. And then if he's in a middle seat, probably prohibitive in terms of comfort.
I think they always fly. I don't know about Vermont, but I would hope UM's flying on their own flight these days. I don't think they.
Think about it though. It gets really expensive now. At that time they were in the Big East, so they were always flying to northeastern destinations. Whereas in the ACC, I don't know. Is it less travel? I would have to think so.
Yeah, but everyone's in this area.
But you're only flying I don't know, total of maybe 20 guys. And you're going to charter a plane I don't know. The Heat own their own plane, obviously. You would think that Mick could afford any kind of jet. But I'm not sure. But whatever travel arrangements they had, private jet or not, or private charter or not, they were unable to get out of Vermont. So Tony might be a little late for those Orange Bowl appointments that he has going, where he's going to be hanging out with Dabo and Josh Heupel.
Tomorrow he had interviews with him.
Every time and Josh Heupel's done a great job as a coach. He's accomplished a lot and maybe surprised some people, right? He was at UCF and now doing a good job here with Tennessee. They were a very exciting team this year, and our underdogs, I believe, to Clemson by 4 points in this Orange Bowl game, which now, how much does this diminish the game, Lubie? I don't want to tarnish Tony's sort of, pie in the sky view of what the Orange Bowl is going to be this year. But both teams are playing with backup quarterbacks in this game.
Well, Klubnik was a choice. Klubnik, they had flirted with all year, and finally made the decision. We're going.
Doesn't sound like a Clemson quarterback.
Cade
Klubnik.
No, his name does not sound like a quarterback at all.
Doesn't he sound like a guy that would be like blowing the chauffeur on Rosh Hashanah?
He sounds like an accountant. It sounds like the guy that is the head of the brotherhood at the temple, and then also your accountant. Yes, Cade Klubnik. But he's the Clemson quarterback, and they chose him. The difference is they chose him, and Tennessee did not choose to not have Hendon Hooker. So that's why I still lean Clemson.
And Hooker was having a hell of a season.
Yes, and
he's injured. Ukulele, the starting quarterback, which many people would applaud, because there was great debate whether or not he should be the starter at Clemson. He had some ups and downs. I thought he was going to be really, really good, didn't you? Ukulele?
Yeah, what do you mean? He was in his recruiting class right with Bryce Young.
Yeah.
And then he had that game versus Notre Dame where he was as a true freshman, where he was a freaking monster. And then it all went downhill from there.
Wasn't really able to sustain it, much like we've been talking about with Tua. Can you sustain a level of excellence over 17 games in the pros? Not the easiest thing to do.
Oh, no.
But he wasn't able to sustain it. I mean, you would have to say that Ukulele was very suspect as the Clemson starting quarterback. But he is now transferred. And so they go with the guy that a lot of people wanted to begin with, which was this Klubnik kid who distinguished himself pretty well for Clemson. So their favoritism is probably somewhat justified.
Yes.
And the backup quarterback is Joe Milton.
Oh, he's not.
Joe Milton.
He was a big-time guy from Michigan. He was supposed to be Michigan's guy, and then he was a total disaster. He's more of like he can run, he just can't throw.
He can run, but he can't hide.
Exactly. Okay. That's sort of his thing.
I do not like that into my quarterback. A quarterback who can't throw for me. I always get a kick out of that when they say, well, you know what? He's not going to throw at the combine. It's like, well, what else do you want to see him do? Right? The only thing you want to know about your quarterback is, can he throw the fucking football? That's it, right? So you're going to go to the combine. You're going to be in front of a million scouts, but, well, he's not going to throw at the combine, which tells me he can't throw.
Yeah, why are they scared to throw? I get it when they're like...
Wouldn't you want to show off your arm? I mean, if you're a three-point shooter, right? I mean, I couldn't wait to get in front of somebody if I was, trying out for a team or whatever, and just start shooting a rock from all over the place. Right? I figured I was going to make a bunch of shots and, eventually be, in a situation where maybe some of the plays were even drawn up to, get me to basketball. That'd be great.
I'm sure you were pro that.
Very much inclined to be in favor of that. And if they weren't designed for me to get the ball, I would find a way to get the ball and then chuck it up from wherever I was. There was no shot that I took that I didn't feel was going in.
That's why you like the Warriors brand of basketball.
Well, the Warriors brand of basketball, I mean, I don't know that it's still the same, but, it was a couple of years ago, especially when they had Durant.
Like 5-6 years
it
ago.
was absolutely the epitome. I mean, if John Wooden was drawing up the perfect way to play basketball, it would have been that. That was great. The movement of the ball and the transition game that they had going and their ability to play both in the half court and on the run. Was absolutely phenomenal, and they shared the basketball extremely well, even though, you had your known chuckers. I mean, think about it. Steph Curry deferring to Kevin Durant and letting him be the primary guy on the offensive side of things, that took a lot for a guy that's perfectly capable of going for 40 or 50 on any given night. And it was perfect symmetry, the way they played basketball. It really was. I mean, they played team ball to the ultimate definition of the word. Unfortunately, right now, it's not going so well for them because Curry's out, and they've had their share of different things happen, and they can't win on the road, which that's not a good trait or characteristic to have if you're planning on being a playoff championship team. I would have put Golden State right back into the mix there to at least make the Western Conference semifinals this year, and much like our prediction that the Los Angeles Rams were likely repeaters to make an appearance at least in the Super Bowl, we look like fools.
Yes, I would.
An omelet that I made this morning should just be on my face. I was involved in a couple of bowl games yesterday, not by choice.
Nice. So Francesco gets involved in bowl games?
Francesco, oh yeah, no, he was making a little bit of a comeback on me in some of these bowl games. He had hit like 4 in a row.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, he was doing well with this. And it does seem to be haphazard because we tried to ask Mark Lawrence on last week's Degenerate Friday if there was some kind of pattern. And he had a brilliant pattern that what was, derived from the fact that underdogs in certain situations were doing great. And I, of course, completely misinterpreted and misrepresented his position when I was talking about the fact that I thought Mark Lawrence had illustrated that favorites were doing extremely well in the bowl games, and they are not. But yesterday I had all three favorites in the games that I was involved in, and two of them ended up winning and winning big. East Carolina. In fact, didn't they, Professor, did he like Georgia Southern yesterday? They were the ones that went down to Buffalo
Did not
outright.
go well. Yeah, it did not go well for him. He said the quarterback had the game of his life. Like, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, you know what? Sometimes when you have action on a game that you really have no interest in, but you know, you ended up somehow having money on the game. How could that be possible that you had no interest in the game, unless you were involved in a circumstance like I am, where you're just booking some blind man's picks, and he bets every game on the board, and you're thinking, okay, what are the odds that this guy ends up at 500? Probably 0.0. Now, the disadvantage for me, and this is almost like taking one of the zeros off the roulette wheel. When do you see single zero roulette? You would have to travel all the way to that casino in Venice that Mustang and I went to find single zero roulette. You know what the new trend is, Louis? Because people are so psychotic when they're gambling. Triple zero roulette.
What does that mean? So that's just another.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so you're playing roulette, right? You spin the ball goes around, bounces out of the number that you have a stack on, and right into the next number.
Obviously.
Okay, but you're getting paid. I mean, this is all about the payoffs. You're getting paid 35 to 1. Okay, so it's a great game. I mean, you can make tremendous advances if you happen to have a very short run of good luck.
Yeah.
You can walk away even not risking that much money. Maybe you only bought in for 100. You can walk away with $500-$600 in a matter of seconds. Right, a couple of rolls. That's it.
Nice.
Now you have to know that, and you have to go back to American Gangster and think of that guy that was dealing the dope out of Thailand or wherever they were, Vietnam, and say quitting while you're ahead is not the same as quitting.
Yeah.
Because you will eventually get ground down. I mean, I've seen it many times where guys were hitting everything. They were hitting stacks with like thousands. Guys getting $7,000 back every time a number hits. He's got, like a dime, or two on a number, and you're thinking, wow, I mean, this guy is going to be filthy rich, and he's stacking chips up, and then you come back about a half hour later, and he's playing dollars. He got like two, and he's taking a marker out, and you're thinking, stuck around too long. But the advantage is, okay, so there are 36 numbers, actual numbers on the board, and then the 1-0.
Yeah.
So you're getting 35 to 1. Now, then the natural odds, if there were only the 36 numbers, are 35 to 1, right? There's a 1 in 36 chance, 35 to 1, against any individual number coming up. So, it's a fair payoff. But when you factor in the zero now, and then two of them, that gives the house the edge. And then it also factors in when people are betting at even money, red or black, which is for some reason very popular. I don't personally like that bet because even money doesn't excite me. It really doesn't. I mean, I'm not inclined to go, oh, I think a black is coming up here. Let me put 100 on that. Rappers do that. I've noticed that. Rappers love to play red or black, and they do it based on what's on the board already. And you will see what I would consider to be a sea of red, as opposed to the Tony Sperano Red Sea defense. But you'll see like the last 16 numbers that came in were red, right? Now, what are you thinking as you walk by that table? Geez, I should reach into my pocket and plunge down everything I have on black.
Yes.
Now, what you don't realize is two things are going against you there. That every spin is just arbitrary luck.
100%.
Arbitrary luck. It doesn't matter. The red could have come in 50 times in a row, and it's got a 50-50 chance versus black of coming in again.
Yes.
It's still the same odds. Regardless of, you're thinking, okay, they're due. It's due.
Yeah, it's not a hit.
Yeah. Odds and probability. I mean, that was the one course I really paid a lot of attention to in school. Now you factor in a zero, and it's not even 50-50 anymore. There is where the house advantage is created, because if it comes up zero, it's green. It's neither red or black. Whoosh, all money goes down.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah. Now you can bet the zero, you can bet the double zero, but they now have 000 roulette.
Oh my God, that's so annoying.
000, and the people love it. I mean, that's the busiest table if you go to a casino, is 000 roulette, which only is designed. I mean, how many times have we said this? And it was a philosophy that came from my good buddy, often referenced here on the show, who was brilliant and way ahead of his time. I mean, this guy was the Lenny Bruce of sports commentators. Ed Kaplan, when it came to degenerate gambling, he was way ahead of his time. And he told me a long time ago, because I told him I kind of like playing like Caribbean stud poker for a little while. And he said, listen, There never is a new game introduced in a casino that is favorable to the players.
Yeah, exactly.
Never. The standard casino games have relatively small margins, but they're going to eventually grind you down. The house odds on craps are the smallest. Blackjack is pretty close, second. And those two are the standards. Roulette, obviously, you're seeing where the house advantage is. It's in those little green numbers. And the other thing is, it's almost impossible to sustain any kind of a run there. I mean, as I said, I've witnessed many times where guys got whittled down to a nub after being substantially ahead. And it's, I walk at a certain point. Like if I make a score early, I'm walking. If I win 500 right away, boom. If it gets down to 4, I'm gone. Right? You're figuring that the trend is going to turn around. But no new games come in there. None of this stuff, right? Let it ride. Caribbean Stud, you don't see too much anymore because it was such an impossible game to hit. You would have 4 aces, and you're in line to make a huge score, and then the dealer wouldn't qualify, and so you won nothing on the money that you would bet on the hand. Nothing. You got your ante back. And if you hadn't played the bonus, you got nothing out of that, right? You have one of the great hands of all time, but maybe you didn't feel like anteing up $5 a shot for the bonus, which is another way where the house gets you because it looks very attractive there. I keep dreaming that I'm going to sit down at some stupid card game like 3-card poker or let it ride and draw the royal flush. And then I've already, and it's just like with the lottery, right? Did anybody hit the mega Powerball last night? Because that thing was up there like 550 million, and I passed on it, Lubie, even though I had tickets to cash. Did you get involved in this?
No, the last one was enough. When I got up to $1 billion, I'm good.
Yeah. I know there's no chance of hitting, but I wrote some numbers down, and I bet they came in. I wrote down one series of numbers, and if this came in, what should I do? Just kill myself right now? Because I usually just, I'm too lazy to fill out the card.
Do it.
6, 16, 24, 39, 57 with the mega ball number of 7. If that came in, you won't see me no more. Not because I hit it, but because I wrote it down here on a piece of paper and didn't play it. I'm hoping it wasn't hit because I do live by the fantasy that as the jackpot grows, I'll get involved and maybe, while, obviously the odds are so extremely prohibitive that nobody's hit this thing for 6 months.
Exactly.
Even though billions of people are playing. I mean, there are like tons of, there's over $1 billion that's been bet on this thing, and nobody's hit it. So, of course, my chances loom large, right? Going down the street here to the convenience store, having old Arnie punch me out the winning ticket, and then we're all smiles. And like I said, I mean, the last time we were involved in chasing one of these jackpots was with the Powerball, and the Mustang and I weren't speaking to each other for 2 days because she was mad that I wanted to give $1 million to her sister.
That hadn't happened.
Out of 700 million.
And again, it didn't happen. You didn't win.
Of course not. Imagine getting into an argument, before the fact, knowing that you have 0.0 chance of being in this position.
Oh my God!
And you're worried about how much money are you going to give your kids, and how much? What do I give you, Lubie, if I hit this thing?
I don't know. I don't care.
20 million enough? I mean,
I'm not asking for anything. I just love that. First of all, yes, this thing got mad, but just that there was even an actual passionate discussion about a mythical thing.
I'm sure other people. I'm not unique in that.
We talked about it, but we didn't get like her parents.
What would you do with the money? That's always the question.
Her parents and her were talking about it, and they get excited and they do the thing, and I don't because I don't know if I'm skeptical, negative, whatever you call it. I know I'm not going to win, so it's a waste of my time to do that.
Yeah.
But we didn't get like angry.
It's perchance the dream, though. I mean, it's Shakespearean.
I get it.
Yeah.
There's not that much money, so throw 10 down. It's fine. What I'm saying is like to actually take it to a place where you take it so seriously that
and you're mad at somebody because they were going to give money to somebody that you feel was undeserving. I would just stand down here with a stack of cash and give it away. I mean, look, you could go buy yourself like a $50 million home at the inlet. You could live in the lighthouse if you wanted to, and still have 550 million left. I mean, that's more than enough to get out of this lifetime, I would think.
Yes, you could.
Or
idiots and still be fine.
You could be a 230 hitter, which is probably a better way to make this kind of capital, right? Because look at this guy with the Sean Murphy. You familiar with him?
I don't even know that name.
Catcher for the Atlanta Braves, right? Sean Murphy.
Sure.
235 hitter the last since 2020. 235 hitter. regarded as a decent defensive catcher. 235 hitter. I don't know if he hits for a lot of power. I only saw this stat here. 6 years, $73 million. 235 hitter. Holy Hector Lopez. Hector's got to be rolling over in his grave, man. The guy hit like 275, and they thought he was a scrub. Could barely sniff the field there as a platoon player. Unbelievable. Hey, yeah, we'll play Yogi in left today. No, sit Hector down. Unreal. Yogi was a lefty. All right, many things happening. We're going to talk to Chris Perkins. He'll get into some football with us. You have Week 17, some really interesting games. The Monday Night Football game is a classic, is it not? For a rare occasion. You have Bengals-Bills on Monday Night Football. Bengals-Bills. Yes. Now, the Bills have clinched the playoff spot, but they have not clinched home field. They're in a dead heat, holding the advantage over the Kansas City Chiefs, who have been winning every week, regardless of the fact that they can't cover a point spread to save themselves. They might have covered last week. I don't know if they were favored by 14 last week, the Kansas City Chiefs. But they were 3-10-1 to the spread. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are just an annuity every week, as they're 3-11-1.
Yeah, the Chiefs. It went off at they were laying 10, so they did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they did cover.
And that's something that if you're a gambler, I mean, this is maybe more appropriate for Degenerate Friday, although we just spent half an hour analyzing the negativity of playing roulette with 3 zeros. If you want to have 3 zeros in your account, play a lot of roulette. That's for sure. It'll be 0.00. But here's the thing, too. I mean, when something's been happening over and over and over again, and it's just like the red versus black thing, but it's not as arbitrary. Here are the Chiefs. Every week, they win, but they can't cover the point spread. Not even close on most weeks in terms of covering the spread because they've been in some life and death battles just to win the game, including against the Houston Texans the week prior. Is that the time to jump on the idea that, the number's going to be lower because people are all catching on, right?
Yep.
Is that the time to jump on it? It hasn't been the case with the Buccaneers because they, again, even though they eked out a ridiculously pathetic victory where Tom Brady, once again, looks like a hero, even though he played like shit.
Yeah, the whole game.
The whole game. Garbage. And you can't say that he doesn't have, I mean, everybody says, oh, well, offensive line's not that good.
They have talent, though.
You got Mike Evans, you got Godwin, Leonard Fournette is no slouch. I mean, he can't run the ball, with this team, but catches the ball out of the backfield. Always gives you, a major effort. Is he one of those guys that averages 3 yards a carry that you're thinking it doesn't matter, man, because he runs hard every time? If he's involved in a 1-yard plunge, I mean, he's punishing people. Leonard Fournette, who was given up for dead, right? Wasn't he, considered to be washed up before he got to the Bucs?
A few times, yeah.
Unbelievable. But you sometimes just have to anticipate when it's time to turn around. Like Mayo blew it that time where he was on to the fact that the Panthers were going to blow their playoff opportunity. What was all in that they would lose to the Capitals, and then predicted that they would get swept in the next round by the Tampa Bay Lightning, and whiffs on betting it.
Yep, didn't do anything about it.
Nothing.
And even we were like, that's a good bet.
Yeah.
We're like, actually,
we considered it.
You may have been right. Go for it.
It made sense. It really did. I mean, the team's falling apart at the seams. They have a coach that can't handle the situation. They eventually fired him, and to their credit, they brought in a coach that was even worse.
Yeah, they're worse.
An unaccomplished losing coach who left his goalie in the other night. I mean, he literally sent out a guy. You thought he was bringing in a substitute goaltender because the guy had given up 6 goals, and he hands the guy a blindfold and the last drag of a cigarette. Says, guess what? You're going to stay in there and learn a lesson. And after the game, he was like beaming from ear to ear, right? Just, you learned a tough lesson tonight. It's like, listen, Paul Maurice, why don't you shove that philosophy right up your ass? I mean, how come you didn't yank this guy after he gave up 3 goals in the first minute of the game? Come on. Bobrovsky can't be that bad. It wasn't Bobrovsky. Who's the backup? Spencer?
Oh, Spencer Knight.
Spencer Knight. Is that? Yeah. What happened to him, man? He used to be good.
Supposed to be the savior. I guess
not. Did he lose his vision in one eye? I mean, if I held up a giant E on the top of an eye chart, could he see it? I'm not sure. The local teams, man. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty bad right now. Yeah,
just when you think you're out. And did you see all those moves the Marlins were making? I mean, didn't they sign that Japanese pitcher? No.
Yeah, they were.
They went to the Mets.
Woo-hoo. Kim Ang thing is such a disaster.
Did they make a bid on Correa also? And they said, we don't care what's wrong with his ankle. Well, we'll sign him anyway. Here's $200 million, Carlos.
Woman or man, I don't care what her sex is. She's worse than any of the like. She does not. She just does nothing. Like
Kim Ang, man, she picked up 4 stiffs in free agency last year,
and they all were
gave
bad.
them a boatload of money by Marlin standards. They all suck. And I thought it was a good idea after an horrendous season that got the former manager of the year and a great guy, Don Mattingly, fired. Guy who was all in and committed to working with these young players. Great guy, a tremendous ambassador for the team. One of the few recognizable people on that Marlins roster where, if you, saw him somewhere, you go, whoa, yeah, Marlins. Yeah, that's Miami's team. All right. Who else is recognizable? Miggy Rojas, one of our favorites, even though he's a lifetime 260 hitter.
No one knows Miggy Rojas.
And,
I like
Pablo Lopez. Okay. Now you probably know Alcantara, although it's not like he's displayed a big personality. I think he has one, but he doesn't speak a lot of English.
I don't know any of those guys. If I had seen any of those guys in public, I would not know who they are.
If Sandy Alcantara was standing in front of you in the 10 items or less line at Publix.
No idea. No, I would think he's a basketball because he's pretty tall. So I would maybe he plays for the Heat.
Would you be sitting there going, hey, that looks like 12 items to me? That really pisses me off. I don't know.
I hate when people.
I try not to let that bother me, but
when they come with a cart full, I'm like,
yeah, I'm counting on going. Wait a minute. I mean, 6 cans of soup is 6 cans of soup. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you have 5 other things here. That's 11, my friend. Get the fuck out of here.
My problem isn't when it's 1. It's when
no, 1 obviously.
Look at it and you're like, okay, that's 8 already.
Anybody could miscount 10 or 11. I think you should be allowed 2 over. No,
I don't. Yeah, I don't mind that. Like within the mean, within the like voting, they do have here within the percentage. But my problem is like with polling. But like when the whole cart's full, it's like and no one. And
then there's another cart. And then, as they're almost completely checked out, they go, oh, wait a minute. My wife just went to get 2 more things. Now she, butts her way into the line there. And you're standing there with, as Mike Mayo would appreciate, a rip-off version of a dozen eggs. Although I don't think I'm going out of my way to go to Walmart to say, even saving $3 on a dozen eggs, would you really buy all of your other groceries at a store and then go someplace else to get a discount?
Oh, you're talking to the wrong guy. I'm the one that literally.
That's what my mother would have done. I mean, and that's why she had like $1 million when she passed away.
I shop on Aldi and Publix depending on what I'm getting because I know I can get one thing cheaper at Aldi and something else cheaper at Publix. Now they're right by each other. I wouldn't drive around. It's like my parents will drive an extra 10 minutes to save 6 cents on gas, and I'm like, you understand? Like you just used it.
Yeah, $4 worth of gas. Yeah, exactly.
Like I like getting the cheaper gas. Don't get me wrong. So I know where the cheap places are.
I want the cheapest gas I can put in my car.
I'm the king of that, but I don't go out of my way to get the cheap gas. Like that's that's sort of going backwards there.
All right, J.J. Watt's going to retire. I don't know. Is that any big surprise? Because he had a lot of injuries. He's young.
He actually had a pretty good year going. That's the funny thing is that's this year where he's been decently healthy and having a good year. He just had a kid. I think his first kid.
Should Tua retire? Okay, we'll discuss that next.
Yeah, don't do that, please. I saw that everywhere yesterday.
How do people come up? I mean,
I think everyone's a doctor.
Who are the people in these editorial meetings when they're discussing content for a show and they think, hey, Stephen A., why don't you try this one? Should Tua retire? It's like, I don't know. I mean, how could we possibly make any kind of a judgment call on that?
Well, first of all,
it's like all of a sudden you have like a laser and you can see inside this guy's head. No,
look, this wasn't the other times. Like, there's no one.
X-ray vision.
I know one guy videoed a fucking thing, and that now when we look at that video, his head hit hard. Fine.
It did.
I watched the game. Most people I know watched the game. No one left that game talking about that hit. During the game, no one talked about it because they panned away and no one went back to it. So it's not like.
I couldn't figure out where he got a concussion. I watched most of the game.
He barely got touched. That's the good thing. As bad as their offensive line is, he's getting rid of the ball quickly and he's not getting hit. Yeah. That's everyone's problem is that when he does get hit the one time out of 60 minutes, he gets hurt every time. Like, and I can't fight that. To play on the field, I'll fight you guys on. The injury thing, I can't, because Burrow gets sacked 14 times in a game.
Yes.
And the guy is there the next week. like Herbert's getting demolished, and something like the Dolphins were hitting the shit out of Herbert. And he played that whole game. Like Tua will not get touched because he gets rid of the ball quickly, which is impressive. Gets hit once. It's like, Tua's out 2 weeks. Like
he has an unfortunate thing of literally like his head's like a ping pong ball.
And then the concussion
on the canvas. I mean, you see this in boxing, and you wonder how it doesn't do more damage where a guy gets knocked down and his head bounces off the canvas, and you're asking yourself, how the hell did they recover from that? And a lot of people, not necessarily catastrophically, but later on in life, as evidenced by the many people that I've known through the years that were boxers at one time. Although, I do know guys that are still completely coherent, even though they took a lot of shots to the head. But, it wasn't the case, although I think he's kind of come around a little bit. I remember interviewing many times Tommy Hearns after his career was over, and it was difficult. Joe Frazier got a little bit better about it, but, I've talked about it many times where I had him in. I was doing these hour-long interviews, and I was, I had a good source for bringing top-level boxing talent into the studio there at WIOD. And they would let you do this, actually. I mean, imagine the program director. Imagine Grace Blazer, who would have been running. What are we doing with this boxer? And it would be like smoking Joe Frazier, right? Doing an hour interview with you, or Roberto Duran. Although that one was in Spanish. I got duped on that one. Bilingual AM talk radio, just doesn't really work unless you're on a Spanish station where all of the people fluently understand and speak English. But, they just, go ahead and opt for Spanish instead. And it was weird, too, Lubie. I mean, with Duran, I never had an empty phone line for like an hour that he was on, even though I had to use an interpreter to, talk to him, which was very – unfortunately, there was a guy in the room that spoke Spanish and English. Otherwise, you imagine how that would have gone? No, I think Levitard got sandbagged by, people telling him that Duran spoke perfect English. And he asked him a long, involved question about the whole no mas thing, which, look, we've all attempted to be clever when getting into these interviews. Certainly, I've done it many, many times. That's my game. But I don't know that I would have started with the no mas fight if I was talking to Roberto Duran. So he goes into this long, eloquent shtick about, how he felt about the whole no mas thing, or how he was known after this brilliant career just for 2 words. And Duran fires back and says, bueno. And then goes into a very short, terse Spanish declaration. And Levitard, you could tell he realized he was fucked. He was stammering from that point on, a guy that's usually pretty, bald with his interview tactics.
It happens.
But, you're sitting there going like Cramden. All right, you won't be doing that in Hialeah Park's casino, that's for sure. Sitting there going because you're in there with a real shot to win. I saw somebody took down 50 dimes. I mean, during the holidays, one of the slot machines they have there in the Vegas Style Casino. Unbelievable, man. And that was on top of recently another score of like 83,000. Now, the beauty of it is that these are the things that obviously that people take notice of, and gambling publications will go, wow, 80 grand won it at Hialeah Park. So you see some publicity on that. But, the general thing is if I go to a casino, I want to have a chance to win. I at least want to be able to enjoy my entertainment dollar for a period of time. I don't want to know that the odds are so stacked against me that it's just going to suck up 20 after 20, 100 after 100. And whatever you brought to the casino that day, you're not only going to be out of it completely, but very quickly. I don't like that at all. And that's why they know how to calibrate these machines at Hialeah Park. So everybody's in there with a good shot. And then the jackpots that are paid are, I don't know that it's a life-changing score, but it certainly is a nice turnaround for whatever money you lost prior during the course of 2022, which I want to say had another losing year, Lubie. No?
I mean, if you count in the Stang hit enough big stuff where she must lose. She can't have lost that much. She hit thousands.
You would think she would be ahead, but I bet it's close. Even with that $11,000 takedown that she had earlier this year. I think that was last year, actually, that it happened.
Wasn't that this year?
Might have been. It might have been.
It was when we were doing our own thing.
Yeah.
Remember, there was a time where you went on like.
I had to go 2 weeks in a row or something because she hit that $11,000 thing.
Yes.
Yeah, we had to go back 2 weeks later to be in this drawing that we didn't realize. you had no chance to win.
Oh yeah,
but she hit then for like another 3 dimes, so that's 14,000 I can account for in just straight up jackpots.
That's what I'm saying.
Won by the Stang on slot machines, and I would have to say that based on recent results, that you notice I haven't been talking about any big scores for like the last 5 months. Just when you think it's easy,
well, obviously,
it becomes overwhelmingly impossible to win anything. And now you're sending it in greater proportions, right? Because you're thinking, I know how to play this game, right? She really thinks that she knows how to beat slot machines. I think the only way to do that is with magnets, and once they catch on to you, they're going to throw your ass right out of there. Unless, I mean, they would be more tolerant even at Hialeah Park. They don't want you cheating, and they're not going to cheat you, and that's a beautiful thing. Poker, outstanding the way they run the poker room. The champion simulcasting room is exquisite. Boxing coming up in February. A New Year's Eve celebration. I think there's still time to get in on that, and you want to check that out at hialeahpark.com. All the details. I believe, Lubie, I think it's like relatively cheap. I remember I told you I spent $500 a pop for 2 people to go to a New Year's Eve celebration on South Beach at one of their fancy schmancy places one time. And I would have to say, came away, completely disappointed and thinking I'm out of dime. But I think this is something, like $55, $75 for like an unbelievable deal with like unlimited this and that and all kinds of great food. So check that out. I mean, if you're looking for a way to celebrate New Year's Eve, this would be the way to go. And then you take advantage of all the other beautiful things that are going on at Hialeah Park, including the great vibe that's, kind of in the atmosphere the entire time. And that's very important to me also. You don't want to walk into a casino and everybody's got casino face.
You guys go to a certain place, and the 3 times I've met you there, I walk in and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. You're looking at like, what is this Drek doing here? Unbelievable.
You guys go to the one place that actually has people that are happy, but like the rest
well, horse racing, it's your own game. That's it. You can't blame anybody else. I mean, you're making your picks, and that's why I like it. And I feel more comfortable. I don't even feel comfortable gambling in a lot of other situations, but I do at Hialeah Park, where we also have had great success. The Stangs walked out of there with some scores because they're giving you a shot. That's what it's all about. Anyway, a great entertainment destination, New Year's Eve. That's a great place to welcome in New Year's Eve. A classic destination here in South Florida, iconic place, like beautiful Hialeah Park, and it's all happening. I mean, it's great. They brought it into modern times and fused the old and the new in a symbiotic relationship of time that I think is unparalleled anywhere. I mean, you could go to Churchill Downs. They've done that, a good job of that, but they really did it. A marvelous job of integrating the old and the new, and also having an eye on the future at beautiful Hialeah Park.
Yes.
Can I extol their virtues enough? I love those guys. I really do. Always have.
Great. They do a great job.
All right, we're coming back with more. Chris Perkins is going to join us in the next hour of the program. We'll take you up until 9 o'clock today. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie Lubitz here, South Florida Live. Glad you guys tuned in. Did we lose our chat line, or are we no longer attracting people?
I got it back.
Make a comment.
Well, we've been chatting.
Okay. All right, because I see nothing here. So, I always dig the comments that come in, especially it's our way of knowing that Andy is still alive, and he can appreciate that.
Honestly, because I texted him twice and he didn't respond. So,
yeah.
At least he's chatting here, and we know.
I think he was betting harness racing in Tunisia while he was in his hospital bed. That's a beauty now. If you have a cell phone and you have an online account, even if you're on your deathbed, man, you can still be punching away. My favorite thing now on FanDuel TV, which used to be TVG, is when they show harness racing. I believe it's from Sweden, where the drivers, there's no sulky. The drivers are actually jockeys. And they're on the back of pacers and trotters, which looks really, really weird. It would be like seeing the old days when monkeys were riding on dogs at Biscayne Kennel Club. One of my favorite destinations back in the day.
Weird shit.
Imagine it, monkeys on dogs.
Betting on mules, llamas, camels.
Mule racing.
Like, what the hell?
Peter Aiello, the fabled race caller, guy is brilliant at Gulfstream Park. I mean, great guy and a tremendous talent, and probably, you could consider him among the best that are out there right now in terms of, being in the booth there on major racetracks. And he was huge in the mule racing. He I guess, came from like Arizona or something where it was big. Mule racing. I can't imagine sitting through a 10-race mule card. No, I don't think they have enough mules at race to fill a 10-race.
Last night at Vega, and I guess I thought I had seen harness racing before, but our buddy Junior, who used to own Rockin' Jake's, was it Rockin' Jake's? The place was called. I was in there. He's a big fan of the show. He always asks about you, and he sits down, and there's always either CNBC and then sports.
Yeah,
we look up, and there's some kind of horse racing because he's a degenerate.
Yes.
And I'm like, what racing is this, Ken? He's like, what do you mean? That's harness racing. I'm like, harness. They were in some weird.
Oh, you've never seen harness racing?
I thought they were in like a harness, like they were in like this.
No. I mean, it's not like they're ziplining.
Thing, like
the sulky.
I'm like, what?
That's what I grew up with. I mean, that was my first early initiation into being a degenerate horse racing gambler. It was Roosevelt Raceway.
I'm like, this is the stupidest. I'm like, they're not even going that fast. They're like sort of galloping.
Galinsko on the one ball, Carmine Abatello yanking the two right out of the gate. It was fantastic. Hervé Filion, Lucien Fontaine. They had a tremendous driver colony there that probably would constitute much of the Hall of Fame of harness drivers. The dancers were in action, and they were big down here at Pompano Park. Stanley Dancer, real class guy. And how many brothers did he have, Stanley Dancer? He had like 6 guys that were all racing. But that's what I grew up with. And, the legitimacy of the sport didn't concern me at that time, where it's very easy to control what the hell is going on in a harness race, is it not? And I think the regulation was also fairly lax. I mean, it was kind of like, what's going on at the border right now, where you're wondering, well, what is the policy? Does anybody know? I don't know. Are they not allowed to deliberately break a horse on the turn so that he has no chance of being in the superfecta? And there are a few guys that are in on that. Don't worry, the 6 will not be in the money. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, what am I supposed to do with that?
Are we going to be in the money with the over? I mean, I hate to have recommended this to people. I was sure.
I was confident. I was really sure. Even when they had the first losing streak, I'm like, oh, who cares? They're going to be fine. And then
I'm still somewhat convinced, though, aren't you, that they can beat the Jets in the final? Where is that game? Is that here?
It's here, yeah. And the Patriot game, and Mayo wasn't wrong. The Patriot game, the weather's supposed to be solid.
Yeah.
The Patriots are look, the defense is fine.
Patriots are okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the Dolphins are a slightly better team than the Patriots at this point.
I mean, their offense is horrendous. Like, their offense is really bad. Like, literally, if Joe Burrow didn't just hand them 2, like the one was in the red zone, so the Bengals lost points, and the other one he literally threw it right to the dude who walked in for a touchdown. The game was over. Their offense is dreadful. So if the weather's good, the Dolphins should win that game. And even without Tua, like there's enough guys where Bridgewater should do his stupid Bridgewater thing and be conservative and make a few plays. I just don't know at this point. Like they're just handing over games. So I don't know what to do with this team. They've had leads in the fourth quarter or in the second half of almost all these games.
Getting shut out in the second half by the Green Bay Packers was no great distinction. The Packers defensively had been allowing marginal numbers of points in their previous couple of contests. I think they were averaging giving up like 20 points a game, which is what they did against the Miami Dolphins. Might have been under 20 points a game, like 17.6 or something. But still, I mean, at home, and what you would have to say, were favorable conditions coming out of the first half because you're still leading 20-13. Yes. I did not think Mayo's pinpointing that Mostert fumble and saying that was a big turning point in the game. It was, I think, just a minor setback because they did hold him to a field goal after the fumble was recovered. And look, you're figuring, okay, based on this, they're going to win this game with 40 points and win it in a runaway. They were hitting on a lot of pass plays, and they were running the ball effectively. Everybody says McDaniel goes away from the run in the second half. I don't know. I guess he did it again, right? They didn't run the ball too much the second half of that game. But I wouldn't have been afraid of giving the ball to Raheem Mostert. He doesn't. He's not a guy with fumbleitis. This isn't a guy you have to worry about.
I didn't like the fumble, but I mean, Wilson Jr. is healthy, so you could give it to him, and you could give it. Mostert wasn't going to become a fumbling fool.
No. The amazing thing in watching pro football is that these guys don't fumble more.
Oh, that's the thing. They get rocked every freaking time.
Rocked. 6 guys all grabbing at the ball, poking helmets at the ball, trying to punch it out of there. You're fighting for extra yardage in there. I'm amazed that there aren't more fumbles by running backs in the National Football League. Although, with homage being paid, he did check out, right, Sammy Smith? Is he gone or is he still around?
I don't
Sammy
know.
Smith.
I thought I saw a post from him yesterday. So
Oh, okay. So then he's very much alive and kicking.
he's alive.
But Sammy went through his share of travails, but it probably was the ugliest moment I've ever
He's
seen.
alive. He's 55.
Oh, good. Okay.
Let's not pronounce him dead.
I don't want to kill him off there because he went through a lot, Sammy Smith, in the postscript to his NFL career, which you would have to consider what was a major disappointment.
Oh, yeah.
Considering, the lofty expectations that he had.
He's a fumbling.
When he got booed in that Houston game, when he fumbled the ball like 6 times in the first half, that was the cruelest I've ever seen a crowd here in South Florida towards any home team player. Sammy Smith. I felt badly as he was leaving the field at halftime. I remember being at that game and thinking, my God, this poor sucker doesn't deserve this. I mean, he's made a few mistakes in a ball game that they're obviously tragic in terms of the result. But really, I mean, the kind of stuff that was being hurled at Sammy Smith verbally as he went to the locker room at halftime was such ugliness, Lubie, that I was almost embarrassed to be a part of that whole scene. I really was.
I remember him fumbling it every time he touched it.
Man, he couldn't hang on to the football. Wow.
I remember he'd get into a roll and you're like, oh, that's why they drafted him. Nice. He looks like his Florida State days. And then they get up to the goal line, fumble.
I mean, Shula thought he had a pass-catching Zonka.
He's so talented.
A combination of Zonka, Merck, and Jim Kick all rolled into one.
He had a lot of talent, man, but he can hold on to that ball to save his life.
No. I don't remember. Didn't he also have Hands of Stone as a pass catcher?
I just remember him always, whenever you'd be like, oh, look.
You would almost rather have Farrell Edmonds underneath the pass, settling in under a bomb, thinking, okay, this will be a touchdown. Balls in the air. I mean, Farrell Edmonds had, he was Manos de Piedra. Unbelievable. All right, we're coming back with more. I'm Jeff DeForest. Chris Perkins is going to join us here shortly. I'm Jeff DeForest. He is Mike Lubie Lubitz. We're also brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. That's mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. Lubie, I hope you're working diligently on those arrangements for the postseason. I haven't heard
back from them.
Somewhere in the postseason, I think we'll be there.
It would be fine with me.
That'll be fine, man. It'll be a beautiful day. I mean, why not be down there in January? That works out perfectly if we can get a hold of Jimmy. All right, we'll be back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
8:14.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
If you look at our organization today, and you see what we've done, from every aspect except on the playing field, we're probably the first-class organization in the National Football League.
It's now time for the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. Albert Castillo, by the way, was the special guest at the Monday Night Jam.
Nice.
At the Funky Biscuit.
I haven't seen Albert.
Packed house. And they say he just slayed it. I didn't get a chance to go. I didn't realize it until it was too late. And, with the bad toe, didn't feel like schlepping out there and being in a packed house where people are sort of walking around in the dark there. And you never know, right? But Albert slayed it. And of course, we reference Albert because he customized some music for us. So we don't have to worry about, at least that's one entity we don't have to worry about filing a lawsuit, and that would be music rights. Unless Castillo changes, his heart or mind and just says, you know what, those guys should have at least paid for the studio time. while I customize that music. But very nice, and glad to see his career. He was a little down, man. I mean, the music industry was hit hard by COVID, especially these guys that count on touring and live appearances to make their money. And Albert was doing easily 250 shows a year. All of a sudden, all of that goes down, and you're sitting home all day practicing on the acoustic and hoping that your dog understands, the message of your music. That really is a deflating thing. So it got a little down, but now skyrocketing to the top.
He's like top of charts and like
doing great.
Gold and
doing great. His records are doing well. Touring around with Mike Zeno as the Blood Brothers, and also individually touring Europe and doing all kinds of great stuff. Joe Bonamassa getting involved with their projects. You can't be doing any better. He's at the epitome and the height of what it was that he chose to do, which is always the good thing, right? My brother always said this to me, Louis. He said, it doesn't matter about the money or whatever. My brother happens to be very successful and wealthy on his own, having made big scores in a couple of different businesses during his lifetime. And, he's an interesting cat in that, while maybe highly antisocial during most of his life, he lives like an Anthony Bourdain type of lifestyle, right? Where, he sold a business a long time ago and then took the next 7 years off and lived like on a sailboat outside of Venezuela somewhere.
What?
And, diving for lobster.
Really?
And, I mean, the guy with a shitload of money too. So, and then he came in and he got invested in, South Beach real estate. Can you imagine?
Oh, good for
Bought
him.
like the crappiest buildings around the area. I mean, real decrepit pieces of shit. And cashed out recently for, several $1 million. So, he could pretty much do whatever he wants. But he always said to me, Lubie, and this is probably true. One day Shirley will look at you and say the same thing.
She hasn't.
That you did in your lifetime what you always wanted to do. Right? And very few people get to do that.
Oh, no one gets to do that.
Yeah. So, that's been our calling, and there's a lot to be said for that if you're just pursuing what it is that you really love to do. And that's Albert, and you like to see guys like that succeed. It's fantastic. This is another guy that I think is doing exactly what he set out to do. I bet if you go back to his elementary school yearbook, if they had one, not only was the editor and publisher, but he probably made the statement, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to be the #1 featured guy on the Miami Dolphins beat after a sensational career with a very diverse background in various sports coverage aspects, with the, Sun Sentinel and many other newspapers. The great Chris Perkins joins us here on the show. Chris, how are you, my friend?
Defo, at my age, I think my yearbook was done with a piece of granite and a chisel, right? That's how far back my yearbook goes.
I always thought that, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you were a fan of Dragnet, Jack Webb. I mean,
Yeah.
just give me the facts. But the show was produced by a thing called Mark 7 Productions, which they were very prominent. And that was their logo at the end.
Yeah.
They had Mark 7 chiseled in rock. I thought, that's kind of the primitive approach that we're taking to
they printed my yearbook. Those are the guys. That's the ones. Yeah.
All right. In the throes of a fork, and Chris, of course, for the people that and very few people would be unfamiliar with Chris Perkins and his work, because he's been on a national stage as well with many of his enterprises, but covering the Dolphins as their primary beat writer now for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. And did you picture yourself in the throes? I mean, having to analyze the throes of a 4-game losing streak back when the Dolphins were 8-3. Did that look like it was a distinct possibility?
No. The 3-game losing streak to me was kind of an outside shot. I thought they were going to get one of those games, the 2 California games and the Buffalo. I thought they'd get one of those Californias, probably the Chargers game. And
everybody thought that.
Do that. Yeah, that was a bad sign. But this Green Bay loss, Defo, granted, you're facing Aaron Rodgers, a Hall of Fame quarterback, but this is a losing team coming into your house, where you had won 11 of the past 12 games. And this is now the Dolphins' first 0 for December since 1993. And we remember that year, right? They were 9-2. They lose the last 5. The last game they won was that Leon Lett game against Dallas in the snow. And they lose 5 straight and they miss the playoffs. You people who are still on for 8 and a hook, I think you're okay. I think you're okay. I say that every week. I've been saying that for the last month.
I'm gargling with Dilaudid. What are you talking about? 8 in the hook. Well, I believe they beat the Jets, but
I hope they won before.
Who knows what happens if they go down in New England? No, if they lose in New England and beat the Jets? Do they make the postseason? I want to say yes to that.
Well, they can. Yeah, they can, but it's going to be a lot tougher. They're going to need a little bit of help. So,
okay.
They need to win this game. They needed to win the last game, the Green Bay game. But basically, it was a race to get to 10 victories. Now you can get in at 9 if they win this week, and then the Jets lose at Seattle or to Seattle. I can't remember where they are. Okay. Then the Dolphins are in, so you could get in with 9 wins, but the 10-win path is more desirable because you won't be limping in at 9 wins. You'll be kind of shooting in with back-to-back victories at 10.
I'm thinking the Dolphins do get that help. That game is in Seattle with the New York Jets, and for some reason, the Jets are favored by 2 points in that game. What would be? Why would you think that? I know they're starting Mike White, and that they love him in New York. How is that possible that the Jets would be favored if they're on the road against the Seahawks?
Yeah, I don't know. Seahawks are kind of leaking a little bit of oil here.
Yeah.
The Jets with their quarterback problems, that's that. By the way, Broward County's Mike White, right? To university school. So he's a local product. And we could get 2 locals in the finale with Teddy Bridgewater and Mike White if things continue the way they are with Tua.
Miramar versus University. It'd be like going
exactly.
back to the old high school beat that we were on.
That's it.
Yeah. Now what's the story with Tua? Because now that I've seen the thing a few times, you covered a lot of boxing, Chris. You would see a guy and his head would hit the canvas, and you're thinking that shot to the jaw was one thing, but the bouncing of the head off the canvas, which is kind of how these concussions have been incurred by Tua Tagovailoa. But he plays the second half and has no complaint. Now, sure, there could be a delayed reaction to something like that, where you don't realize that you're hurt at the time, and later on, all of a sudden your head is throbbing. Which I guess he started to have headaches. So what was the story there?
Well, first of all, hello to Mike Mayo on the text line, and hello to Scott, because Scott's always out there on the text line. But the deal, I don't know the deal with Tua. He's a small quarterback. Yep. But, the way that he's fallen down, that the hit from Matt Milano from Buffalo wasn't an especially vicious hit. Tua just fell and hit his head. Same thing against Cincinnati with Josh Tupou, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. And then with this tackle, like none of them have been like vicious blindside hits where Tua was violently thrown to the ground. They've just been kind of typical tackles that a quarterback takes, and that's really what disturbs you, and that's what kind of bugs you a little bit. From Tua personally, I'm sure it disturbs him because he's wondering, why is this happening? This never happened in college or the NFL. He was injury prone, but not the head hitting the ground. And then if you're the Dolphins, obviously, can you extend this guy's contract? Like this seems like a thing that it's a higher risk than somebody blowing out their knee again. This is a thing that, and also let's look at it like this. Strategically, if Tua is out there and knowing his concussion history, his head injury history, the quarterback draw off the table, the quarterback scramble off the table, the quarterback sneak on 4th and 1 off the table. And so strategically, if you're the Dolphins, are you at a disadvantage playing Tua moving forward? If I'm a defense, I'm not scared of this guy running. His career could be on the line. And so, those are the types of things that you have to think about. Obviously, Tua as a father and a person is number one. But strategically, if you're the Dolphins, can you extend this guy's contract? And are you at a strategic disadvantage when he's on the field from the standpoint the other team knows Tua isn't and can't run with the ball?
Perk, as of yet, I haven't seen anywhere where they have officially said he had a concussion. People assume the concussion protocol. Oh, there it is. No, the Dolphins have been very clear in saying we are not sure. We didn't hide anything. No one knew anything was wrong except for that one guy who took the video from his couch. Yeah. Like they are on him. He's been on it. The minute he felt anything, he went to them. The minute he went to them, they went and put him right in. So they've done everything they're supposed to do. They've even gone above and beyond in a way a lot of people haven't. But to this point, I still haven't seen anyone say he had a concussion. And I feel like that's exactly what they're waiting for. What is the word on that? Will we ever get word that he officially? Because that first time, we still haven't gotten that what was it? Not the Bengals. What was it? The Bills when he walked weird and they did Zapruder like thing to look at the walk. Like they never said he officially had a concussion. Like have they officially said he has a concussion? Will they? Will we hear that?
If he has a concussion, they will officially say that he has a concussion. But at this point, Lubie, I think that's almost beside the point. We're kind of just looking at head trauma here as opposed to a diagnosed concussion. And with head trauma, is he going to be forced into concussion protocol? And professionally, if you're the Dolphins, are you going to be losing this guy for 4 games a year while he's in concussion protocol, whether he has a concussion or not? That seems to be a very real risk. And again, these aren't vicious hits. These are pretty much typical tackles that a quarterback is going to take in the course of a game. So, can you extend this guy's contract? Can you? And look, here's the other deal on the Dolphins that we know that they've pretty much opened a 2 or 3 year championship window because you acquired Tyreek, you acquired Teron Armstead, you acquired Bradley Chubb, you used first round picks. Well, you lost 1 first round pick, but you've used first round picks. So your means of getting a new quarterback are fairly limited in the next couple of years. So you're almost married to Tua at this point, and so now what do? You're kind of stuck. You've got to kind of figure a way around this thing.
I always think, because it's such a vague, gray area, what the impact of a concussion is, and what the possible consequences would be of sending a guy out there who is still concussed, and how it's going to impact the guy's life overall. And I remember I happened to be watching the race where Dale Earnhardt was killed, and if you saw the crash, it was weird because it didn't look like much. You'll see these guys get involved in fiery crashes where the car rolls over 17 times and then hits a wall and ends up in the stands. Guy gets up and walks away, waves to the crowd. And I remember seeing this sort of marginal incident, and I think the commentator was one of the wall trips, and he said those are the kind of crashes where you have significant consequences because it doesn't look like much, but those are the kind that are dangerous. And sure enough, the guy checked out. And I'm thinking, you can't marginalize any level of concussion if there is fear that this is part of the problem or a consequence of getting hit. Like Tua has, where his head keeps landing on the grass and hitting and bouncing up. Because, we just don't know. I mean, those may be the worst in terms of, potentially developing CTE and maybe, making the guy lean towards, saying, hey, maybe this isn't my game. The other thing you mentioned, too, which is really interesting to me, was because I thought about this a couple of times now in recent weeks, where, the strategic disadvantage you have when you have a quarterback that doesn't really take off and run a lot. Now, we thought when drafted that this was going to be one of his key characteristics was that he presented more of a dual threat than a lot of guys that don't pass the ball as accurately as he does, the Kyler Murray types or whatever. And yet, if you look at these big strapping quarterbacks like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, they're all big threats when they take off and run. And they run a lot of design plays for these guys to just, go ahead and act like they're Larry Zonka.
Yeah, and so you do wonder, and again, I feel like I have to keep saying, Tua and his life are number one. We know that, but strategically, I mean, that's why we're talking about Tua, right? Because he's the Dolphins quarterback, and they have to plan for the future. Really, with the future starting, with the Patriots game, and then going beyond. So. Tua presents a lot of unforeseen problems. And when he came out of Alabama and he had the hip injury, and you were kind of thinking, all right, this guy is injury prone, but nobody had head trauma on the list,
No.
and you might have thought shoulder, elbow, the hip. blah, blah, blah. But this is just a totally different animal. And so it just seems so wildly unpredictable. And look, there might have been a precedent set last week from the standpoint of the guy with the, as Lubie said, the guy sitting on his couch taking the video. You remember how in golf people would send in videos from home all the time, and guys are having strokes erased. I mean, who knows what happens with Tua going forward with people putting videos out there? Hey, his head hit the ground, and again, this is the Dolphins and the future. This is head trauma. This isn't necessarily being diagnosed with a concussion. Who knows how this might influence the spotter moving forward when Tua is on the field. So unfortunately, this opens up a lot of doors, or potentially opens up a lot of doors for Tua and the Dolphins as far as, can we play this guy? Can we trust that he's going to remain on the field? Even if you extend his contract and put in team loopholes that you can get out of the contract after so many years or this reason, you're still setting the team back. So now what? You go to Skylar Thompson as your starter, or Teddy Bridgewater? Like, the whole thing kind of starts over again. So it's a very delicate situation. Fortunately, neither the Dolphins nor Tua needs an answer today, but we're all looking forward. And right now, it's not very favorable for Tua or the Dolphins as we sit right now.
Well, and speaking of right now, it's not Monday. Today's Wednesday. They have to start announcing health, announcing lineups, announcing what's going on this weekend. This is a huge game, as you guys were just talking about. What is the sense you're getting? Because Bridgewater got a majority of first team snaps yesterday. Tua's in protocol now, so he can't do anything right now. You need a certain amount of time to get out there and play. That's what happened before. It was even when he was sort of cleared, he still couldn't play because he couldn't get out there. What is the sense you're getting for this weekend?
My sense is Teddy Bridgewater gets the start this week. And today is going to be their first full practice. Monday, they came in and watched video. Yesterday was the day off. Today is going to be the first full practice. They said that they had planned for Teddy to get the majority of the first team snaps. I think that's going to happen. Very interesting. Teddy last week was his first week back in a while. He had been sidelined with the knee injury, and Skylar Thompson had been the backup quarterback for I don't know, the previous 3 or 4 games, whatever it was. So I don't know if Teddy has any rust to knock off, but I will say this, and shout out to Jim Sarney, who's also on the text line there. The games that those quarterbacks, Teddy and Skylar, started or that they played, the Dolphins did have a chance in the fourth quarter in 2 of those. Cincinnati game, the Dolphins lose 27-15, but they led 15-14 going into the fourth quarter. Tua goes out at halftime. Xavier Howard goes out in the fourth quarter, and then Joe Burrow goes crazy. They score 13 fourth quarter points, and they win. The Jets game was a disaster. They lose 40-17, but the Minnesota game that Teddy Bridgewater started, and by the way, that Jets game, you remember Teddy started, he got knocked out on the first play, Sauce Gardner, then Skylar comes in. Skylar starts, the Minnesota game, Teddy finishes it up, but you remember they were down 16-10 in the fourth quarter against Minnesota and driving. Jalen Waddle fumbles at the 14, and so then Minnesota takes that and goes back the other way, and they win 24-16. So the Dolphins were in it, and to me, if you're the 14th, the backup quarterback, what you do is you keep the team in the game until the fourth quarter, right? And then it's up to Xavier Howard and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike McDaniel and all these people to deliver the victory. So to me, whoever starts this week as the backup quarterback, keep the Dolphins in the game till the fourth quarter and let your high-priced, the other guys take you home to the victory and to the playoffs.
Chris Perkins, South Florida Sun-Sentinel. He's the Dolphins beat writer. And one more thing on the Dolphins, and I want to move on to a couple of other things that are happening in the National Football League. But and I guess it's a 2-part question here. You mentioned too, and they have to decide whether to make a commitment to the guy, because, and based somewhat on whether or not they consider him injury prone and how severe these, concussions are, and how that equates out to, possible inhibiting his play in the future, or possibly inhibiting his play in the future. But on the merits of what we've seen him do, would you be inclined to extend his contract for another 4 years for $130 million? And then number two is Mike McDaniel becoming bizarrely more existential in his conversations about what happened during the game as the losing streak is mounted. I mean, where now you almost need an interpreter to figure out what this guy is saying. What do you think? I mean, what's going on there with that dynamic? I mean, would you, if you were Chris Greer right now, and it was a okay, take it or leave it situation today, would you have a contract extension on the table for Tua, not based on physicality? Let's say that was fine, but based on his play, and then McDaniel. I mean, what do we think of him at this stage of the season?
Well, with Tua, with Tua, the Dolphins have the option of the 5th-year extension, and then you can extend his contract. Actually, you could go 5th-year extension, franchise tag, and then the extension. That's kind of what Lamar Jackson is going through now. But to answer your question, no, I would not extend him right now because of the injury thing. And performance-wise, yes, I would have, because this seems to be you kind of know that Tua is limited. He doesn't have that big arm like Justin Herbert, but you can work with him. You could win a championship with him, I think. As long now that's provided you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike McDaniel and some creativity around him. You could work with Tua and possibly win a championship, but. So based on performance before this, Defo, I probably would have definitely had the 5th-year extension on the table. I don't know about the full contract, the full 5-year thing, but I would have extended him to the 5th year. As far as McDaniel, man, I will say this. This is a very serious situation with the Tua head injury. But before this, McDaniel was still joking around during the 3-game losing streak. And that was something that he did earlier in the season, even though the stakes are a lot more grave in December. So I credit Mike McDaniel for still being Mike McDaniel, for still being true to himself. He hasn't changed and gotten snippy and started, getting snippy with reporters and all that. He's still joking around. Now, if things have gotten a little more serious, and I'll say this, Defo, as teams have figured out this offense, stuff is not as funny with McDaniel, right? And so he has changed from that standpoint. Because look, and this week, we know that Bill Belichick takes something away from your offense. And increasingly during this losing streak, I think teams have thought, you know what? This is a 2-trick pony offense. If we can sit on Tyreek and sit on Jalen Waddle, they can't beat us. They have no running game. They don't have a move the chains offense. It's a big play offense. And if we can limit those big plays, we've got the Dolphins. And so now it's time for McDaniel to come up with a counterpoint to that. You've got Mike Gesicki there. You've got Raheem Mostert in running game. You've got to come up with something. You've got to distribute the ball differently, whether it's running it more or hitting more receivers. We'll see what he does, but we know Belichick is going to have something that's even more than what the 49ers showed you and the Chargers showed you and the Bills showed you and the Packers showed you, because he's Bill freaking Belichick. This is what he does. This is how he's gotten to the Hall of Fame. So let's see how McDaniel comes up with a counter to whatever Belichick is going to do.
Well, you saw this pretty clearly illustrated with Green Bay, and we've seen it in a few other games in this 4-game losing streak, San Francisco in particular, condensing the middle of the field and anticipating these throws underneath sort of to Hill and Waddle, where they've been dynamite. I mean, they had Waddle with that dynamic play where he goes for 84 yards on one-play drive, and the Dolphins seem to be, in command of that game after Green Bay put a score on the board. You saw this linebacker clearly drift over, knowing that, Tua, who actually telegraphed his pass. I mean, he looked in one direction and then threw the ball, and he just drifted into the spot. It was almost, remember when, was it Keith Byers had gone to the Patriots, and everybody was assuming that he had tipped off the Patriots? This was a common habit of Belichick, which I thought was also one of his genius traits, is he would acquire a guy from the team he was about to play,
Yeah.
and then sit him down with a big light in front of his face and say, "Tell me everything that they do." And Byers, I guess it was Mike Vrabel that made the interception on a Marino pass where it seemed like Vrabel knew what Marino was going to do long before Marino even had the play sent in. And that's kind of what happened on that second of the three interceptions. I know he sailed one on the first pass, and it seemed to just make an impossibly poor decision on the third one. But linebacker just slides over, knowing that this is what he does, and he kind of telegraphed it. And it made you think either this guy is seeing bugs or, that there's something inherently wrong here. All right, let's move on from the Tua thing. And I think you're right. They probably extend him, giving him one more shot, see if he could play a full season and sustain what at times has looked like pure brilliance, as opposed to some of the stuff that we saw there in the fourth quarter of that game against the Green Bay Packers. All right, I'm looking at this, and I was thinking about this. Obviously, Babe Ruth being sold for money to finance a failing Broadway show, Chris, would go down as the worst deal ever made in sports history. But is the Russell Wilson trade and subsequent signing? I mean, you say George Patton, you think of the general, right?
I was going to say, every time I think Patton now, I'm like.
But now I think of this, GM how he keeps his job after this deal. I mean, you can clearly see that I don't see that turning around in Denver's favor. And Seattle actually, after losing Russell Wilson, has a better record playing Geno Smith. And they have first and second round picks in the next 2 years that are coming from a Denver team that is so bad that those are going to be very valuable first and second round picks. Yep. And meanwhile, they signed Russell Wilson for 800 years. And he what happened? I mean, you know the term shot fighter. Does he not look like a shot fighter to you?
Well, I'll say this about Russell Wilson. Now, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, but let's face it, during the early years of his career, when he had the most success, they won because of beast mode and Legion of Boom, right? Yeah. It was Marshawn Lynch back there running the ball, and it was that defense that was shutting teams down. And if you look at his career passing attempts, he was usually in the second half of the league his first few years, first 4 or 5 years when they had so much success. And as they had to pay guys and that defense broke up, now his passing attempts increase and Seattle's success starts to wane a little bit. And so I think that's what we're seeing here is that, Denver has to rely on Russell Wilson so much that they're finding out, that's not really how he succeeded when he was in Seattle. Also in Seattle, I'll give Russell Wilson credit. He had one of the worst offensive lines in the league. It was usually Russell Wilson and Ryan Tannehill in the lead for most sacks. So the first few years of their career, they were both in the 2012 draft. And so the first 4 or 5 years, it was both of them getting sacked most. But again, Russell Wilson had so much help from the run game and the defense that's to me, that's what led to a lot of his success. And now he's out there exposed, and Denver is finding out, hey, that this guy needs some help. And they don't have the resources to get it. So to me, that's kind of what you're seeing in Denver right now.
You made this deal. You loaded up a contract that has $160 million in guaranteed dollars. You gave away mortgaged your complete future to Seattle in the process of making this acquisition, and then you chose Nathaniel Hackett to be your head coach. Yeah. Now, did this guy have some kind of slip and fall at a Walmart? It's George Patton. I mean, how does Hackett get canned in his first year and they don't send this guy packing as well?
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
This is like the Republican Party. No responsibility for January 6th. Nothing. We had nothing to do with it. Nothing. There was another day at the office.
Well, the first disappointing thing is it's pronounced Peyton. It's George Peyton, even though it's
Peyton. Okay.
Patton. But that's fine. But yeah,
there is only one T in there. You're right.
Right, but this guy he's got to be in the crosshairs for a lot of for Denver fans, right? For the way that he has really kind of gutted this franchise and. He put so much on Russell Wilson. And again, I think that a lot of Russell's success was beast mode and Legion of Boom. And why George Payton couldn't see this and others couldn't see this, I don't know, but they're in a bad situation. They're in a very bad situation. It looks like they're probably derailed for a couple of years because of what they did to acquire Russell Wilson. And this thing is just, it gets more disastrous every week, it seems.
Plus, they're stuck with Wilson. I mean, they can't get any better while this guy is, in what appears to be, a radical drop off. I will say this for Russell Wilson: you would watch him, and people were, considering him among the greats with Aaron Rodgers and Brady when he was in his prime, and he did come up with some spectacular big plays at certain times, and whether it was running or passing the ball, he sort of surprised you with his ability to throw the ball long. And he was always a threat to take off and make something happen with his legs. And he did account for a lot of big plays for Seattle. I'll give him that. But, I mean, if you were watching him recently, you thought, wow, I mean, there are signs of decline. And then this year, I mean, not only is the passing game horrendous, but they don't even attempt to do anything. I mean, he's looking, at making clown plays on like what is going to be a drop-off in the flat. And, this is something that you wouldn't have anticipated at all from a guy that was going to come in and save a franchise. So they're doomed. How this guy has employment today is not like trying to help people run the automated cashier at like a Denver Walmart. Is beyond my comprehension. All right. Let me ask you about a couple of teams here real quick and whether or not you think they are going to win the championship. Philadelphia Eagles, are they going to win the championship?
Ooh, at this point, I don't know who's going to win the championship, but Philly is as good a bet as anybody. And
okay,
look, I'm a guy. Yeah, I'm old school, and I like the defense and run game teams. And again, that's how Seattle did it, right? And there's a lot of teams that if you look at them, I know the quarterbacks get a lot of credit, but I like teams such as the 2015 Broncos, right? That when Peyton Manning went out, Brock Osweiler steps in, and they're still able to win the no-fly zone defense. Look, those two quarterbacks combined for 19 touchdowns and 23 interceptions. And they won a Super Bowl in the passing era. Same thing with 2017 Philly. When Nick Foles comes in, Carson Wentz is going to be an MVP, right? He has 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And then Nick Foles comes in, but they win because of defense and run game. Nick Foles gets the Super Bowl MVP. He gets that huge contract. But we see that he's just a regular quarterback. And so I'm building around to that's kind of how Philly is winning this year. I know Jalen Hurts is in the MVP conversation, but that defense, again, led by Fletcher Cox and all those guys, defense and run game. And so that's why I kind of like Philly, a team that can maintain. I know they lost to Dallas last week, but you put up a pretty good fight when Jalen Hurts was out. And look, Defo, when we talk about what's happening to Russell Wilson and the quarterbacks and how much you pay him, Dak Prescott is one of those guys who I'm very wary about. Dallas had to pay him, but he's another guy. Okay, you've got Zeke and Pollard, and you've got Micah Parsons, and to me, that's how that team is winning. They had success when Dak was out. I like the way that they're built. But, when you pay all these quarterbacks, you better look at the reason why they're successful. And I think that Dak is a guy who gets a lot of assistance. And so you did have to pay him. But, as we look at Tua and some of these other quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, all th's guys who are coming up, you better know why this guy wins before you give him the money.
Well, and it's interesting you talk about quarterbacks because it's the reason why I actually like this team the most. Their quarterback situation should be the most dire, but somehow Brock Purdy came in not only confident versus the Dolphins, with no reason to be confident. Now they've won, four with him? Is it 4 in a row with him? They won 7 or 8 in a row just as a team. So now he has a reason to be confident, and that's my problem for the Eagles, is they're good at defense and running. They're not the Niners. Right. The Niners are better at defense and running. Right. And they have a coach who's now failed twice in Super Bowls as both an offensive coordinator and a head coach. So you're hoping Shanahan's learned, okay, when we get there, let's do the simple thing and not try and be smart, Jimmy G and Matt Ryan. That's the thing with the Eagles to me is, yes, Hurts is the better quarterback on paper. The Niners are scary. And they're doing it with Purdy, who's actually getting better. That's my only thing for the Eagles is I think with their way of doing it's good. The Niners are better. At least to me, they feel more scary.
Lubie going with the popular choice.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree, Lubie. And look, I like to. I know that this league is quarterback heavy, and that's how you sell tickets, and that's how you get TV viewers. But yeah, you got to look at how some of these teams are actually winning, and you're right on the head with San Francisco, and that's what Philly is doing. That's what Dallas is doing. There's a lot of look. That's how New England got to the playoffs last year, was defense and run game. That's how Mac Jones got to the Pro Bowl. He had 22 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, for goodness sake. They didn't win 10 games because of Mac Jones. They won because of defense and run game, and Mac Jones just didn't screw it up. And so that might be the case with our Super Bowl champion this year, whoever wins it, is that the quarterback is the guy who made some timely plays as opposed to the guy who put the team on his back and threw it 40 times and won them the Super Bowl.
All right, we have Bills-Bengals as the Monday Night Football game this week, so that's a major attraction. And of course, many subtle things still to be decided, which you think might be the trigger to go into the Super Bowl if these two teams ultimately survive the earlier rounds. But a lot at stake. I mean, the Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, A, competing for the opening round bye, and then B, also at stake would be a possible home field advantage, which you would think either way that was going to be somewhat crucial. Chiefs playing at home obviously are very good, and the Buffalo Bills in late January in Buffalo, well, we see what that's all about if they even play the game there. But so how vital is this, and who do you think ultimately survives between the Chiefs and I guess, I mean, does Cincinnati still have a chance to be the number one seed? Yeah, if they win this game. So
all three are in it.
Of those three, I mean, give us a little shell game. Who comes out of the mix there and is most likely to be hosting a possible AFC Championship game?
Man, this is like the NFC. I really don't know. My gut says Buffalo. And I would look. I have reasons to cheer for Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Kansas City just from a sheerly personal standpoint. Buffalo, I feel so bad for them losing those 4 straight Super Bowls. Right? You want to see them get one.
Scotty Norwood, yeah, unbelievable.
Look, but Cincinnati played 2 of the best Super Bowls we've seen, right? And they lost them both. So you would kind of like to see them get it. And then Kansas City. I love dynasties, and I would love to see a Kansas City dynasty and Patrick Mahomes as one of the great quarterbacks of all time and challenging, Tom Brady for the 7 Super Bowl rings and all that kind of stuff. So selfishly, I have reasons to favor all of them, but I'm going to pull for Buffalo, and I think that this is Josh Allen's year to kind of lead them, and of course, they don't run the ball that well, but they do have a running game led by Josh Allen. They've got a good defense. They're a good team. I would really like to see them win the Super Bowl, get the number 1 seed in the AFC, all of that stuff. It would be a great thing for that city. I mean, the snowstorm, we got lucky being there the week before. We thought that we saw snow this last week. So
forget about it. You'd still be there,
Buffalo
Chris.
is my favorite, and I think they're the most well-rounded team also in the AFC.
Maybe. I mean, you could definitely make a case for that. And the quarterbacks, all interesting. Joe Burrow, Joe Cool, everybody likes him because of, his kind of approach to the game. I have fallen in love from a personality standpoint with Josh Allen, in addition to the fact that he is like Jim Kelly on steroids. But he just seems to be, such an easily likable guy in his approach to everything. And then I'm always going to be rooting for Mahomes because I took insult. I was at a place getting ready, the Funky Biscuit, getting ready to watch a great musical show. And I ran into a friend of my brother's who was sitting at the next table. And he introduced me to a guy. And he knew, you know how this goes because you're involved in this business. Everybody thinks that they have to ask you a sports question. Okay. Like they just met you and they know, okay, Chris Perkins, big sports writer, man. Hey, how about Tua? You think they should sign him? So the guy asked me what I think of Patrick Mahomes. I said, he's great. I love him. And he looked at me like I was a complete asshole and almost gave me a little bit of a sour attitude as I was going into what should be a very happy occasion. You're about to see great live music and, share this experience with your friends in a perfect atmosphere. And I thought, hey, fuck you, man. Mahomes is great. And I almost got into it. I got sucked into like a sports argument, like I was going to morph into Stephen A. Smith. So I don't even remember the guy's name. I do remember the face he made. And I'm thinking, I always want Mahomes to come out on top now. Just because of that guy. And,
and Defo, the funny thing is, he probably tells the story in reverse.
Asshole DeForest. Yeah.
Mahomes was going to suck.
You can't win, Rock. You can't win. Chris, we love you, man. Thanks for hanging with us. It was great. Now, I'm not getting a chat line. I would imagine there was some commentary there from Mike Mayo, no?
Yes, Mayo jumped in.
Yeah.
Talking shit about Tua. Yes, he did.
Mayo is a very confused individual. Have you noticed that about him, Chris? I mean, he wants to root for the Dolphins, but he hates the Dolphins. Something happened when, I guess it was when Huizinga called him to the office there on another matter. And, and insulted him, right to his face. With henchmen hanging around, so, holding him back so he couldn't throw a punch at Wayne. And I think he harbors a grudge. I really do. Well, we know he harbors grudges.
Yeah, he's deeply scarred, I think. He's deeply scarred, yeah.
Something happened to him as a kid, man. Somebody took like a toy away from him or something. He's arguing with me about this yesterday, which there was no argument. It was just an observation. You travel a lot, right? Right. Have you noticed this, Chris Perkins, that there's been an incredible spike in the tab that you get at an airport bar over, recent times? Like, I mean, you used to go, okay, you knew you were going to get whacked. You might pay $55 for, 3 drinks, okay? Now it's a stick, no matter what you get. If you throw in a bag of Fritos, it's like $110. It's crazy.
Yeah. I write all this stuff off to supply chain issues, Defo. The airports might be robbing us blind. This might be a whole blind. This could be a whole airline scam that they're pulling on us, and they're splitting the profit. Southwest and American, JetBlue, they're all laughing at us. But I just write it off to supply chain issues, and
to the sunset. When you turn in those bar tabs from the airport, do they get questioned when you go to human resources? I mean, what happens there when that's on your expense account? I asked the guy the last time, look, Mayo thought I was crying about this. Look, I understand. I go to casinos. I bet on horses. I know what it's like to put money up in smoke or, get robbed in a situation. But I actually asked the bartender, when do they drop the puck for the first period? I thought the only time I paid these prices was at a hockey game, for God's sake. Exactly, unbelievable. Exactly. All right, Chris, you have a good one, man. And you're off to New England?
No. We only travel soon, so I'm staying home. Dave Hyde and David Feronis are going up to New England, so I'll be writing from the warmth of 79 degrees and sunny at 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Well, good. You get the advantage of having those replays shown 100 times so that, when Tua, if he does play, hits his head again, you'll be aware of it. Because I couldn't believe this guy was in concussion protocol. I thought, what did he walk into a wall in the dark? I mean, what happened to this guy?
Hey, you got this week is going to be the spotter watching for a Teddy Bridgewater stumble. Yeah, exactly. So Skylar Thompson, get ready. Get ready.
If he slips on a banana peel, man, that's it. He's going to be seeing that guy Nowitzki right up there in New England. That's where he hails from. Yeah, he goes straight to his office. All right, thanks, Chris. Always a pleasure, my friend.
All right, guys.
Always a pleasure. Let me tell you about Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill before we make our exit here today. And Lubie, I know you were working on arrangements. Have we lost contact with these people?
I reached out to them, haven't heard back, and I will do that again since we're in between holidays.
Get on with Jimmy, whatever you have to do, because we have to make this happen.
Source. I mean, I love Jimmy and our guy Tommy Fox, but it seems like that wasn't getting it done. So I went straight to Amanda and Dom.
Way to do that. Yeah. No, John gave you his blessing on that, right? It's like you authorized him to, look up your credit report. I mean, and you started the ball rolling. I think it's going to happen. Actually, it'll be good. I don't know how many playoff games Fox will have. I mean, there's so many playoff games now. First round's going to involve, 6 games? Because the first round's going to have, there are 14 teams, two get a bye. So 12 teams, 6 games in the first round.
Yes.
So I'm hoping Fox is like knocked out of one of the rounds or something. So, or maybe they do it on a Saturday. So Jimmy could be available, because we definitely want to talk to Jimmy Johnson again here on the show. And think about it. I mean, when we were talking about this Patton guy or Peyton, immediately you thought of the Herschel Walker deal and how the Seattle Seahawks are now in a position to do something similar to what Jimmy did. Now, I don't know how in touch Jimmy is with the college game today, but if there was a guy who could tell you, how to manipulate your position in the draft to get into a more favorable spot, it would be Jimmy. So it'll be interesting to talk with him about all the things that are going on, including the playoffs and his book Swagger. And then on top of that, we get to stay down there, which is fantastic because I love Key Largo. I think the weather as of today is going to be more in keeping with what you would normally expect this time of the year here in South Florida. And I see the sun popping up through the curtains here, and it looks really, really good. Anyway, perfect timing. All the month of January, February, the entire season. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, a great destination. They don't rob you blind. when it comes to prices. Very, very much in control of keeping everything at a very, very reasonable level. And that's for the most outstanding array of food and diverse menu that you could possibly conjure up. I don't know how they came up with all these things. I know Dominic Kajemi is the guy behind it in the kitchen there. Our good friend CJ was helping them out making some of these specialty pizzas they have. But everything from the finest of seafood and steaks, to nachos and pizzas that are very, very extraordinary. A full complement of just great, great things that you can indulge in while you're down there in the Keys. And then cocktails, extraordinary what they do with the service there. Whether you're outside at the tiki bar, where you're waist deep in the pool and just sitting there. I never moved for like a whole day. I watched live bands all day Saturday and Sunday, and just stood there in the pool. And there was, a very, very, prominent presence of service. So you didn't have to, I'm dying, man. Can I get a drink? And they got to check with the front desk and see if they could get somebody to fill in while they go across the street to buy right there on the grounds. Everything you need, including water sports and all kinds of fun and entertainment, live music, as we said. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. I guess we should just say sayonara for today.
Yes.
I'm questionable. I'm on the very questionable and injured reserve list for Mike Mayo's lunchbox. And I feel badly about this because my buddy, Dr. Jerry, who I play tennis with, also happens to be a podiatrist. And he's been treating me on this broken toe. And the only time he had available was 11:15 today. So I have to be in Margate at 11:15.
You're not going to make it 12.
No way, right? So why don't I just
concede
right now?
5 minutes. Yeah, the drive itself from Margate to you, that's where I live, is 25 minutes.
Oh, easily. Yeah, no, more than that. Maybe, more like 35 by the time you get done. Well, where Dr. Jerry's located.
Okay,
all right, so probably going to have to scratch off of that. I hope Mayo's okay with that. 'Cause, I don't like to skip the show. I really don't. But we do have live appearances coming up, and you guys can come out and join us. And I hope you will. You want to check out Brian's place, Wicked Cheesesteaks.
Yes.
And that's we're going to be there lunchtime tomorrow from 12 to 1.
Oh.
And stop on by and say hello. And, great food and drink. And push Mayo to order some of the really good chicken.
I want pizza, wings. I want to really get into that world. And I'm sure we'll do something lobster.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had the lobster roll a few times, and I could eat it every time I go there. But,
Mac and cheese is good, but I know they do pizzas, and I know they do wings. And, I want to.
I'm into, like a little straight-up cheesesteak action.
And regular cheesesteak. Yeah, do something different than we've been doing.
See what happens, with Mike Mayo. And then Friday, we're out at Gulfstream Park, and that's turned out to be a real hoot, Gulfstream Park. Just get to stick around there. I didn't realize how much I, have known over the years and missed a lot of the people there at Gulfstream Park that have been a part of the crew there for a long, long time. And it was real nice to get reacquainted with a lot of different people that I hadn't seen for a while. Hadn't been out there for about a year. And getting out there every Friday is just a real treat. Maybe we could talk Luca into coming on the show this week. Luca Panici.
Yeah, that'd be great. I know Mayo was trying to get in touch with him.
Yeah. He actually he was working horses that morning when I tried to get a hold of him. And he said he didn't see my text until well after the fact. But told me he was 100% in the next time. So
let's do it.
Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe we can get some insight into what it's like to ride horses there in the big races against a dynamite jockey colony at Gulfstream Park. We'll be out there on Friday with the lunchbox and trying a new barbecue joint.
Yes.
That guy Joe's been spectacular. The food and beverage manager. Wow.
Joe's great. Yeah,
he has been fantastic.
He's great. He's good on air. He gets it. He's actually better at understanding Mayo's ridiculous clues than we are.
Yeah.
He's got all 3 restaurants, which is
Mayo threw us for a loop there.
Joe got it, though. Joe got it there. On set. He had just heard it. We had heard it like 5 times.
It's not an institute of higher education in Kentucky. In the bluegrass state. Didn't even say Kentucky, this guy. I'm thinking, what is he talking about? Is a restaurant named Bowling Green or something? I don't know. Are they in Kentucky? All right. Well, see you. You guys will be coming your way at 12 o'clock today, South Florida Live, the Mike Mayo Lunchbox Show. Always a lot of fun. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning at 7. We should have a Hialeah Park Trivia Challenge with Dave Gurgles Gurgling. That's always great. And then Friday, a Degenerate Friday. So lots of good things on tap here on the Defo Show. Thanks for tuning in. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll see you next time. As we leave, you know that.
The time.
It's 9:05.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they brought.